First thing you want to do on this saw or any of the saws, make sure the blade is parallel to the bed. Now the way to change this, if it's not, bar right here, you pull this up, and then you can crank this like so, okay? There's also, back here, there's a little nut that you can set this on its level. Well, come over here and look at this, guys. A lot of people don't know about this. You see this little thing right here? Once I get this level, I can adjust that screw, and it should be level all the time unless something else happens to it. So if I put it down and if it hits that, it'll stop. Don't always trust the gauge. The gauge isn't always correct. You should always manually check this, okay? That's one of the first big things you want to do. Second thing, you should always unplug it, of course, when you're touching the blade and stuff. This, there are guides on this blade that keep it straight, okay? They say a piece of paper between the blade and the guide is how you set it. The most important is this, the end when it's the thrust guide. So when I push on this, that back roller has to pick it up and keep it straight. The idea is to keep this blade in a certain place on this wheel. This is the biggest blade we have. This is a rip blade. It's made just for ripping. We have other size blades that'll do different things. Tension is another thing that's kind of hard to figure out. You kind of got to go by feel. They say if you put your hand up right here like this, that's how you lock it. You shouldn't have more than 1/4 of an inch. And I don't, okay? I have maybe an 1/8, that's fine. This right here, of course, locks the height. This is how I set the wheel. If I turn this in or turn it out, I've got it locked now, because that's where I want this, but it'll make the wheel go this way or that way, okay? This will unloose everything, so I can take the blade off. You always want to have this down. But you don't want to mess with any of this stuff, except obviously the height, when you're setting the height. You want this as close as you can to whatever you're cutting. Okay, there's also a bottom blade that also has the same bearings on it that are holding the blade onto the wheel, okay? Okay, that's about all you want to check when you first start it. When you start it up, you shouldn't hear any metal noise. Always listen before. That's humming the way it should. Now the reason this is so dangerous is this doesn't stop. My brain is wired that when I turn something off, it stops. So this is still running. If I went in there to grab something, I could get hurt. Okay, so like I said, this is set up to resaw. And here's where we had a problem. Over tightening this. This is cast. What happens if you strip this, you have to replace the whole thing, right, Dave?
Yep.
And how should we tighten this, David?
Oh, I'll show you.
Yeah.
The purpose of this is so this doesn't slide when you're using the saw. Somebody, Gorilla, whoever it is, has tightened this down so tight that you can't get it loose. And twice this whole blue piece, the threads were stripped on it. We had to have it replaced. So I'm going to demonstrate something. I'm going to use my baby finger to tighten the locking lever. Would you try to move that? See if the fence will move. See if you can move it.
We're good.
Come on, put your weight.
We're good.
Yeah, you can't move it. You can't move it. You do not have to tighten it down. That's one finger, just like that. So
So a good sign.
Please don't
a
over
little
tighten.
sign on that would help, Robert.
I'm sorry?
A little sign, don't over tighten.
Don't over tighten anything. Okay, a lot of times when I'm ripping, I'll go to the table saw first and I'll make a cut. If I would rip this without this cut, it would take me a long time. When I get done, I'm gonna have a little ridge in here I'm gonna have to sand off. But this is real safe and it's real quick. And the blade can't get out of there, okay? One thing that you don't realize on this is that there's two measurements on this. There's this one that I just showed you, to keep it parallel. But there's also another measurement. This blade is gonna move a little bit. And here's what's gonna happen. Watch. Now that isn't much, but you can imagine what's gonna happen if I take a bigger piece. That's gonna grow. You see the difference? It's about a half a blade, maybe a blade. That can be adjusted only with leveling this. So I would have to undo this and I would have to adjust the bed, okay? If this doesn't cut straight, the only thing you can do, and this is a special fence they made, and it will move. It has an adjustment right up here on top. You see how I can move that? That's for drift. If I'm cutting a piece, and if it starts out here and it ends up over here, that's because one side of this is sharper than the other side. And you know what happens when you got sharp against dull? It's going to drift. That's why they designed this like this. So even if I've got this perfectly level, there's two adjustments here. The bottom one tightens this up. If I've got it perfectly level, it can still drift and my cut can still be off. So that's something what you can do is you can take a scrap piece of wood and run it through here and see where run it about halfway through, and then you can adjust this to match the drift. Okay, that's one way to fix it. Okay, also there's a better way to resaw, and that's why they sold us this. This is called a post, a resaw post, or a single, it's a single point. So instead of using the whole surface with my board, I'm just using a small part. Phil, I think you use this quite a bit.
I've used it, yes.
I've seen your resaw.
Yeah.
And
It works pretty well.
well, it's made specifically, you can use it for any kind of resaw.
I'm not sure I know what you mean by resaw.
Resaw means I'm taking a fat board and I'm cutting it to something thin.
Yeah.
Or, like if you had a nice piece of hardwood that you wanted to,
I mean, like, you showed this,
I've got a board.
this piece, and
I've got a board.
here he already cut two kerfs in it on the table saw. But you could also resaw it without cutting those kerfs. And the reason you might want to do that is if you want to keep the width to as close to exactly half the width, not lose the kerf that you cut on the table saw.
So just for my edification, why not just complete that on the table saw? Because the cut looks nice.
It's a little too high, and it's also a fairly dangerous cut to make on the table saw.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's.
Sounds scary.
You might be able to do it with that large fence that Richard showed last week.
That's a resaw
But-
board. Came out of that thickness there.
I had a board that was bowed,
Use the flat.
and I can't find where it ended up. Anyway, if you have a board that's bowed, like if this goes like this, and that's ideal for this. What you have to do is you have to draw a line in the center,
Yeah, I mean it.
and then this way you can control it, okay? And also, have you ever cut a board and it came together? That'll happen, or it can spread. If you do it this way, with this roller end, regardless of what happens, you're not gonna have to put a wedge in there and keep it off your blade. So that's another advantage. This is very nice. Okay, I know that's quick. Oh, another reason we tipped the bed is if you want to make something like this. This is a bowl. A lot of people would do this when they build bowls on their blanks. I can tip this table and make that cut. I have a jig over there I made that cuts circles. If anybody's interested, I'll show them how it works. And you can go ahead and start your bowl out, and then you save yourself a lot of rough out time. Okay? Questions? Don't forget to turn on the dust collector. Very important. Also, if you're cutting wet wood, you're going to see these tires get all full of crap. They're going to get full of pitch. They're going to get full of all kind of wet, if you're doing wet wood. So if every Friday we check this, make sure it's clean, but if you're cutting a lot of wood and it doesn't look clean, stop and clean it. It's not that hard. Just spray some of this stuff on it, let it sit a little bit, and then take a piece of wood and set it in here and clean it like that. It'll come right off. The bottom one gets dirty faster because that's the first one that gets the wood, right? Okay, the only other thing I can think of is sharp. When is the blade not sharp? How can you tell it's not sharp? If you're pushing something through this and it's really hard to push it through, it's probably dull. If there's any smoke or any burning on the wood, it's probably dull, okay? You can't come up and just touch it and say, oh, that's dull. It depends on performance. And different kind of wood, you know, thick wood, hardwood, is gonna make a difference on this. You have to go slow on this. This isn't a very fast tool. Made to
Don't
go
cut it, let your saw do the work instead of you pushing it.
Correct, yeah. Anybody have questions? You can make a really nice radius with this. This was designed for real sharp turns. This is an older saw, doesn't have a lot of adjustments on it. The one thing that a lot of people forget, if you pull this out of the key lock, it won't start. You've probably seen these before. The safety for little kids, right? So if you don't have this into it, it won't start. Again, you've got a height adjustment here, where you can adjust this. This has a special roller on it. The roller in the middle has a little groove cut in it, and that's what this blade has to sit in. It's not easy to keep the blade in there when you're making turns. You gotta go slow. But that's what that's for. This is also a special blade. You'll see how far apart the curves are. That's because it lets the sawdust get out so you can make turns. Okay? These are really nice blades. We have extra ones as well. This will get dull like anything else, but you can make real fine cuts with this. It'll do heavy stuff like this. This is real simple. You just I draw some lines on it. Okay? Not too much adjustment on this. This is just to make it tighter. You really don't have to mess with it because we check it. You don't really have to. The one thing on the dust collector, this blast gate, there's another blast gate right up there. If this isn't open, then it's not going to suck anything because it's the same. See? Okay? And the same with this guy. If you don't open the blast gate, he's not going to suck anything up. This is a really pretty safe. This is a pretty safe tool. It's not that hard to use. Once again, you want to listen to it. You hear that hums? That's what it should sound like. But once again, like the big saw, it doesn't stop real quick. So don't stick your fingers in there. Use a push stick. Okay? Any questions on this? No? Okay. There's one adjustment over here. Don't mess with it. Yeah.
What is the rule of thumb on how high to set the upper guide?
We're hearing something? You want to be able to see it, right? I have to be able to see what I'm cutting. If it's right on top of it, I can't see what I'm doing. But the way this is designed, you can't get right on top of it because of that wheel. But the closer you have the guide to what you're cutting, the less chance of your blade moving and distorting and stuff. With this, you got to make a lot of relief cuts. Relief cut would be like, if I wanted to come in here, I would make a cut here first. Cut in here first, then come down here. So I don't have to back up.
Right.
That's all a relief cut is, okay? Real simple. Questions about this? No? Okay. The last thing is the scroll saw. Now this is a really cool tool, I think. The only limitation is the height. You have to put something in there. It won't get hit here, right? You can't use anything very tall. This will fit, okay? The nice thing about this is anybody can change the blade. It's real simple. This is the tension bar. This brings this up and down, okay? Unscrew this, and you got another one on the bottom you can unscrew. And we have extra blades right here in this little box. And it'll tell you on the packet how thick the blade is designed for, what it'll do. The beauty of this is, if you're doing something like this basket that I showed you a minute ago, you don't have to cut into the side like you do on a lot of other projects. With this, I drilled a little hole right here, and then I drilled another little hole right here. Well, that hole, when I take this apart, I can pull this up, put the blade in the hole. It's really nice, so you don't have to come in from the side. This, the speed, there's a little bit of speed you can adjust it also with. This has to be up or this is gonna bang. You have to put some tension in it. You wanna go to about 3. Then I can go faster. This is tighter, this is faster. So I'm starting to hit a little too fast. Here's your speed and here's your height adjustment. This also blows air out. You can put this on the line that you're cutting so you can see it and it won't.
It's not going to go on.
It won't be heated up. I got to heat it up to get it on. Okay, real simple tool, real quiet, real easy to work. Questions? This table will also tilt if you want to make an angle on something. Okay, this is really a nice tool. One thing I would suggest if you're cutting something, I would put blue tape down first, any kind of tape, before you put your design on it. This blade gets super hot because it's so thin and it's cutting so fast. The glue from the tape keeps it cool. Yeah, so always put some tape down, and you can do that on any of the saws we're using. It makes a big difference, especially if you're turning. Okay,
So what type of tape?
blue tape works best, but if you have white tape, it's the paste in the tape that cools this down and helps kind of lubricate it when it's going through the wood. Yeah.